Oh, hang on. Need to say hello, hello. Here we are back for number that's for two of our holy wise woman discussions that we are going to bring to you weekly. I'm Tracy.
I am Dawn.
Back again. So this week we are going to be discussing aging gracefully versus fighting aging. We want to know your thoughts. We're obviously going to give you our thoughts. Is it empowering to embrace natural aging? Or is there nothing wrong with a few little tweaks and cosmetic enhancements? Thoughts, ideas, comments. And if you like our discussions, don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, all the goodies to our YouTube channel so that we can, we're hoping to get to 50 very soon so that we can start going live and actually having discussions with everyone.
And we want to get everybody's input because we want to know what the women over 40 are thinking. We know what we think, and we're going to share that. But we want to know what other people are thinking because everybody's got a different idea of what aging means. So it's really important that we get everybody's input that is willing to participate.
Well, and we know what society thinks aging is for women, but we want to hear from you
Yeah.
what your ideas of
I'll,
aging
I'll
means.
absolutely start. I am all for if you whatever work you want to have done, go have it done. If you're doing it for yourself, if you're doing
Yes.
it to please a partner, no. If you're doing it because of your bad self-esteem, I think that's also probably a bad reason because you're perfectly 100% valuable just like you are. So it's not to make you more valuable. It's just something you want to do for yourself. I'm
Yeah.
the Dolly Parton variety. I will be bleaching my hair until the cows come home. I will have the lipstick and the nails and all the things that I fall into her categories. Like if I can,
Yeah.
girl, I'm doing it. That's just it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's something that women think that they should be doing, right? Like it definitely, I like the idea of aging gracefully. But there's a part of me that also believes in, a little nip, a little tuck, a little tweak here and there to feel better about myself. And I will admit, this has been the bane of my existence for as long as I can remember. And it is something that I want to get done. I feel like this either, it ages me or it makes me feel bigger than I really am or makes me look bigger than I really am. And so, yes, if I can run to someone and get that sorted out, then you can be darn sure I'm a gonna.
Well, now, are you in favor of surgery or injectables? Which one is your,
I don't know. I haven't really researched. Well, actually, that's not true. Let's clarify. I did do some research probably about 15 years ago, and there's a couple of different things that can be done. And I think I would prefer surgery because I don't like the idea of weird, like I'm not for Botox. There's this, I'm not a fan of Botox because again, yeah, it's an injectable.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're all for it, go nuts, have
Yeah,
at it.
I mean, there is so much out there now with the injectables, and some of this so much more than Botox. I mean, there's a world of stuff. My thing is like it's pretty expensive. I've looked into pricing on a lot of this stuff, and I would say like there's Juvederm, and they've gotten all kinds of names that I can't even tell you what their names are, but they're expensive. The
Yeah.
injectables are probably, I would say on average, $800, to probably get your face, like your cheeks. Like you can pull this up with injectables, but the shelf life is maybe a year. Okay, let's just say it's a year.
Okay.
By the time you've
So
done,
you're always having to do
and if
it.
you're doing that one thing, you're probably doing something else. Like you probably are combining it with Botox more than likely, because some things do one thing and some of the injectables
Gotcha.
do others. So you could easily spend $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 a year
Oh,
doing that. Where you could go spend 10 or 15,000 or 20 maybe, and just go get it done and not have to worry about it anymore. With a
yeah, I looked in. So 15 years ago, what they said they would do is they would sort of, it was like a little mini lift. Like they
Mhm.
would take some stuff out and then a little mini lift, which meant that it would be, bruising kind of all down here.
Right.
And I think that was between $5,000 and $8,000 up here. Um, but you had to wear like a thing
Yeah,
around your
other
face and
stuff.
you
Yeah.
had to rest. And they said it was going to easily be like a 3 week
Yes.
recovery time, which wasn't awful, but I imagine with the injectables, there's probably almost no recovery
Almost, yeah,
time.
I think, yeah, depending on what you're having done, it's either zero or maybe a little swelling for like a day or something. It's very,
Yeah.
so yeah, just it depends on,
Yeah, it depends on what you're going for. See,
yeah.
so there is also something else where they like freeze like the
Okay.
fat in here, and then that's supposed to like shrink stuff. I don't know. I looked at that and that was only like a couple $1,000s, no big deal. Um, but I will say I am looking forward to aging gracefully in the sense of going gray. I'm actually very excited to go gray, only because once I go gray, if I really wanted to, then I could start doing funky colors in my hair that I
Oh,
can't do now,
yeah.
because if I want to do it now, I have to
Yes.
bleach.
It
And I'm
will
not crazy
evolve
about the idea of
again.
bleaching my hair. So, yeah, so I feel like there's pros and cons to everything. But like you say, it's about doing it because you want to, not because society is forcing anything on us, or a husband is like, oh, I wish you looked
Yeah.
like her, or I wish you looked younger, or all of that stuff. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
on us to look younger. I don't want to look
No,
younger.
that's yeah, that's the thing. And I think most women are not trying to look like they're 20 or even 30. They just want to feel, they want their outside to match how they feel on the inside.
And I still don't feel 50
Yeah, and then body starts kind
on
of, yeah,
the
it kind of
inside.
wants to start breaking down. You're like, no, I'm not ready. I'll be ready one day, but I'm not ready yet.
Yeah. 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 And that's actually probably a really good way to put it, is matching how we feel on the inside to the outside. And our outside might be looking a little older than we actually feel on the inside. And we want to match. There's that disconnect, right? Like, um, I don't know if you, so there was a movie a long time ago. Oh, the Banger Sisters, with Goldie Hawn and Susan Sarandon. And it was hilarious. But what was funny was, I think Goldie has had a little bit of work done, and so her face doesn't match her hands. For
Uh,
me, it's always the hands
okay.
that look old
Well,
faster or sooner, and I thought that was kind of an
it's interesting
interesting.
because it used to also be, even when they would go to like the Golden Globes or whatever, they could get their faces done with all the primer and the make, but their neck never matched for the
Yeah,
longest time. Now they've got stuff for your neck now, so now that's not a problem.
yeah,
Yeah. And they even
yeah.
have I don't know what it's called. And if anybody out there has had any cosmetic surgery,
Would
jump in
love to
here and
hear.
tell us your experience because I would love to hear it. But they've got like different micro needling and stuff you can do for your chest now,
Oh, interesting.
which it's like a lot of little needle holes and it's these little threads that kind of gives a little volume back to your chest, which
Interesting.
apparently is has a lot of success. I don't know anybody that's done it though.
No, I didn't know about that. I would just like it to look a little less leathery because of like
Yeah.
sun tanning and being out in the sun with the kiddo and whatnot. But cream is good enough for that. It's just remembering to moisturize.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, everybody's getting like their nails done and the lashes. And, while I don't think there's anything wrong with that, although sometimes I think the lashes look a little
Unless
spidery
you've got, yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
They're a
in my
little,
opinion, you've gone a little bit
yeah, I tried them.
interesting.
I did try them so that I could actually have an opinion one way or the other. I was not a big fan of them.
Okay.
So I went back.
Like false eyelashes or the where you had the extensions put
The
on?
extensions. I
Okay.
had the extensions. No, I actually prefer just putting on some falsies every once in a while to give me a little bit of a lift, because I really don't have much in the way of lashes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much out there that I feel society is trying to force us into
Into it. Yeah.
this looking younger because
Yes.
younger is better, or like whatever mind games they're trying to play with us on the whole
Well, yeah, they're trying to
aging
force us
piece.
into it, saying you look old, but then when you go do something, well, now look, you're just trying to be young. It's like, so
I
again,
know.
it's back to the damned if you do, damned if you
We
don't.
can't win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we
that's not,
definitely can't
well,
win.
we're doing it for us
I
and not
I like
anybody.
the idea of a choose your own adventure when
Yeah.
it comes to this sort of stuff, right? Like, pick what is going to work for you, toss the rest.
Yeah.
When you come to a fork in the road, pick one way, ignore the other. Like, falsies don't work for me, extensions, or falsies work for me, extensions don't, because I like um well, it comes back, this is where we can kind of bring in some of what we do. So for me, it brings in more of the experimental side of things. So because I use human design to coach around the style, there's a few different layers that we can look at, and one of them is your environment arrow. You're variable. And mine is to experiment, right? And what I have recently discovered is I don't always like to experiment with my style,
Mhm.
but I like to experiment with my glasses, my hair, my makeup, right? And so extensions, I can't experiment. They're there and they're there for 3 or 4 weeks or 6 weeks or however long they're supposed to last.
Yeah.
But if I use a falsie, I can use a spare one, I can use a full one, I can use a long one, I can use a short. So then I get to experiment. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
that's what
makes
I do.
me happy.
That's a reason I'll never get a tattoo because I like accessories that can be changed out. That's exactly why, like, one, I don't like needles, but second, I want something, I don't want anything permanent, whether it's
Ah,
eyelashes or whatever. I want something I can change because I change nail polish colors every other week. The earrings, the makeup. When I
yep.
was a teenager, I used to constantly dye my hair. I dyed it black, I dyed it red, turned it green on accident one time. It just guess what? Well water doesn't work well with certain hair dyes because we
Oh,
well water
that's a hard
is
lesson to
very different
learn.
than city water because it has a lot of minerals in it.
Oh, wow.
Hair green. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
but that's why I don't like tattoos on me because I want to change out all my jewelry, my accessories, and I don't want anything to have to be static if I don't want it to.
And you don't want it to compete.
And I don't. Yeah, and just a personal preference. Now, love tattoos. I love them from other people. I just don't want them for
Yeah.
myself. And that again,
Yeah.
I don't like needles. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a big deal too. No, actually, it was funny. I was chatting with a friend of mine the other day, and we were both talking about what we were going to get next because it's just like, oh my God, there's so many and not enough space. And
no. Anyways, it's
so,
like what we do is like we want you to find your voice and your personality because who you decide you want to be is going to tell you what you want to do to show up in the world. And whether that's aging
yeah,
gracefully
well,
and just letting it all happen how it's going to happen, or
yeah,
helping Mother Nature along a little bit and giving her a little
yeah.
prop up here and there. Both of them are great as long as it's with the identity that you are going to feel confident showing up with and going out into the world and being that woman and not being self-conscious about it because you've had cosmetic surgery or not being
Yeah.
self-conscious because you're aging gracefully and you don't want hair dye. It's
Yep.
like you need to walk into every room you walk in like you own it. That is our goal. We want you to own the room, always be the most powerful woman in the room, even if there's 20 women in there, because they
And
can
if you don't
all
even know what that
be.
means,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe you grew up in a house where, I don't know, well, let's take Amish, for example, right? Like they grow up a certain way, and then some of them decide that that way is not for them, and so they leave. And they, start to experience different things and start figuring out who they are, right? Yes, it means that they're shunned by their family, but they're willing to um, take that risk, right? And they go off into the world to start figuring out who they are, but maybe they struggle with that.
Yeah.
So it's about finding who you are and doing it because you want to, not because,
Right.
someone has said, like you grow up in this culture, and so that's the way that it's always done, but it doesn't sit right with you.
Right.
So finding what does sit right, what does resonate with you, and owning the fuck
And
out of it.
owning it. And I'll tell you the biggest or the most prevalent person in your life that will impact that is your partner. Because like in my experience, like there was a time I was, I had started working out. I was looking good. I was really the first time in my relationship, the multi-decade relationship, that I was really taking care of myself. I was going to the gym and I started, wearing the clothes that I liked, which I used to never do. I always wore what he liked.
Yep.
And then we were going for a walk down the sidewalk one day and he was holding my hand and he said, you've never looked better and things have never been worse because you're just not as nice as you used to be.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow.
And it's like, what do you do with that when you're doing
Yeah.
something that makes you feel good about you? But the problem I had at that time many years ago was I wasn't comfortable in my own skin.
Right.
Even though I was looking good externally, I had the appearance of it. Those words he said completely derailed me for a long time. And
Oh, I don't. Yeah. Well, I
I'm
wouldn't doubt
not
that at
nice
all.
anymore. What's the worst insult you can give a woman? You're not very nice. Nobody likes you.
Yeah.
You know?
My worst one was I got a haircut, and I thought the haircut was okay. I was trying to find a new hairdresser because I had just moved back here and I was with my son's dad, and Um, we were FaceTiming because he was working away. He was working in a different part of the province where they, you go into camp and you do something and then you come home. And he wanted to see the haircut, and he told me I wasn't fuckable.
Oh, my stars.
Never
Wow.
forget it. I will never forget it. And it was probably the worst compliment I had ever had about anything.
Yeah. And that's what
So
and that's where it's like you who you feel like you are has to match how you're showing up because then that with that comment, if anything, you might have kicked him to the curb earlier. It's
yeah,
the same thing with me. It's
yeah,
like somebody tells you that because you've never looked better, but I don't like you
yeah,
because it interferes with my image of who you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to show up.
yeah,
And that is a huge, huge problem for women, especially like we referenced last time in the online dating space, which neither one of us are currently participating.
yeah.
Jump in if you are. We want to hear what you have to say about that. But the
We
thing
actually
that
will have an
men
episode
feel
coming up about
so
that. So we would
comfortable.
love people to come in and have a chat
Oh
about
my
that one.
goodness, yeah. These men feel so comfortable picking apart women's appearances. And you've seen TikTok after TikTok of women who have had this happen and they're in tears. This perfect stranger who that woman has never met. He tells her how ugly she is, or she's not fuckable, or she's not this, or no man's ever going to want her, and she's going to die with all of her cats. And she's in tears. But if she knew who she was, if her identity was intact, and then she was showing up on these dates or in the dating sites or whatever, embodied in who she is,
Yeah,
it wouldn't even phase her.
yeah.
And that's where we have to get with women is we have to not let other people's approval or disapproval change how we value ourselves and how comfortable we are in our own skin.
Well, and I think for a lot of us, and I know this is like probably a massive generalization here, but I'm just thinking like, obviously, I can't speak to the boomers raising, or the silent generation raising the boomers, but I can speak to the boomers raising us as Gen Xers. And again, it's still probably a massive
I'll say the
generalization,
same, yeah.
but as with anything, it comes from our mothers, right? So like I can't say for certain, but I do remember my mom having diet pills in the house because this was like the 80s and that was a thing. And it wasn't so much about the food as like appetite suppressants. I don't even
Right.
know if that's a thing anymore. Um, and never going out without her makeup on, always having to have her hair done.
Yeah.
And, you know, um, what's interesting is we had a conversation the other day. I don't even, well, the other day could have been a month, could have been a year ago. Who knows? Time has lost all meaning for me right now. But we were chatting, and I think I don't even remember what we were talking about, but what came up was weight, right? And because I know that that was a thing for my mom, and it still is. She wears fairly baggy clothes because she really doesn't like how big she is, and I think a lot of that has to do with menopause. But she asked how big I was. I said, well, I'm at my heaviest now. And I think a lot of that had to do with, like I went down to some of my lower weight when I was breastfeeding, because of course,
Mhm.
obviously there's a lot of stuff
Right. Yeah.
going on with that, right? And now probably in peri/menopause now, yes, I am at my heaviest. And she's like, well, what's that? And I said, well, it's about 150. And she's like, really? She goes, you look great. She goes, I look back now and I realize that when I was at your weight, I hated myself.
Isn't that
Like, and
something?
it really doesn't look
Yeah.
that bad, right? Like you look
Yeah.
curvy and
So
okay.
much
And
harder on ourselves than what
yeah,
we should be.
she hated herself. She
And I
hated
think
how
that's
she
a huge
looked.
problem. That's what I say with the baggy clothes. That's what I did. Is like, yeah, when he's like, obviously, I felt like I was destroying my marriage because he didn't like the way because I was obviously being entirely too selfish, showing up in the world how I wanted to show up.
Right?
And so I just stopped for a while. And
Yeah.
then that's the first thing you go to is like, you start, I was wearing his t-shirts instead of my own so that it would be completely baggy and there would be you lose your shape
Yeah.
completely. It's because you don't want nobody's supposed to look at you. Like nobody can
Heaven
tell
forbid we
you.
show off that we have curves, right?
Yeah,
Because that's just who we are. We have
yeah.
curves.
Women have curves, and that's just the way
Yeah.
it is. But yeah, that's exactly what I did for a long time. And it got so bad to one point that I had a family member visiting, and my daughter was going through pictures on our computer, and there was this
Okay.
picture that came up of me that I was wearing one of his hoodies at the time, And it
Okay.
was obviously he was 6'3". He was a lot bigger than me. And so he just hung on me, and my family member comes up there, and I think she thought she was being funny, but she said, "You look like a bridge troll." But she was being serious, kind of in a way that like it wasn't meant to be a joke. But it was a statement. It wasn't is there something you want to talk about? No, she was
Yeah.
commenting on my appearance, on how awful I looked. And I was like, well, if you would look at some of these pictures of women when they're like that and having pictures taken when they're not dressing for themselves, look at their eyes because you can tell
The,
so much about how they're feeling by their facial expression. But nobody ever does that because if you looked at just my face, you would have known something was wrong in my life. You could just literally see it
yeah.
blatantly. But nobody looks at that. They look at how you dress and say, well,
Yeah.
you just look like shit. She's let herself go. You just don't take care of yourself. Nobody says, is everything okay at home?
Yeah. Well, I think that takes too much. Um, I was going to say reflection, but that's not quite right. I think it's easier to look at like the external
Yeah.
stuff than it is to look at that and be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
You know? And that's not to say that not, everybody's like that. I'm sure some people may have noticed, but do they then want to get involved?
Yeah.
Right? Like, because what if they're wrong? And I get that. I've had severe foot and mouth syndrome before
Sure.
doing
We
something
all
like that,
have.
right? I saw somebody I hadn't seen for in years and I thought she was pregnant. So I asked when she was due and she was like, they're
Oh,
6.
that's a big one. Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I've never asked another woman that since.
Yeah.
So I think that it's easy to say, that doesn't look good, or, you know, like, why would you dress like that, as opposed to addressing the root issue just in case they're wrong or they don't want to get involved in someone else's
Yeah.
issues, right? Put their foot in it. So, I mean, I can see it, but again, I think I said this last week. If you haven't got anything nice to say, maybe don't say anything at all.
Well, and that brings us to another point from woman to woman, how critical we are of each other.
Oh, I think we're the
Without knowing
worst.
somebody, we are, I mean, and I have done a lot of work around this because it wasn't ever really intentional, but you find yourself critiquing people in your head. Look at it's a stereotype now, but they talk about the people who go to Walmart. There are some people that dress very interestingly at Walmart. That is true, but we don't know
Hmm.
why they're dressing like that.
No.
Maybe that's all they have.
Yeah.
Maybe they love what they're wearing. I don't know. And I'm over here making an assessment about what you're wearing and not even bothering to turn around and look at myself. What makes me think I've got the right idea?
Yeah.
Am I dressing for myself or am I dressing to go to the store because I want you to think I'm always put together? I don't know.
Well, and I think that honestly, I think it is the women that are the harshest critics of the cosmetic surgery as well, right? I mean, look at how critical we are of the Kardashians. Now, I am not a fan of them by
Yeah,
any stretch. Like,
either.
I could take them or leave them. I really don't think they bring a whole lot of value to the world in and of itself. My opinion. Anybody out there loves them,
Yeah.
so sorry. But how many times have we looked at them and said, oh, like, what work are they having done?
Well, yeah,
Or, oh, that's got to be a wig, or,
yes,
oh, this, or,
we
oh, that.
minimize
But
them for not, we say they're not smart. They're just know how to, their bodies are great or whatever. We
yeah,
don't know what they're smart. They're obviously smarter than I am. They've got a lot more money.
yeah,
They figured out how to market themselves. So it's like, yeah, we even
yeah,
make assessments about their intelligence level because of what we're looking at,
yeah.
as opposed to, doing our research on these particular women and then making a decision on how what we think of them.
Heaven forbid a good looking woman actually be intelligent and understand business,
Yes.
right?
Because you can't have it all. Can't be beautiful, confident,
A
put
mom.
yourself out there, live your life. Yeah, mom, live your life the way you want, no matter what anyone thinks about it, and be independently wealthy.
Hmm.
Or a good businesswoman, whatever, however you want to look at that. It's like, yeah, they're not allowed to have it all. And so therefore we must tear them down in some fashion.
The only one that I don't see that happening to, and I could be wrong because I was not really much of a fan until recently, would be Dolly. And I don't know if it's because she kind of beats everybody to the punch, and so people
Yeah.
just don't bother anymore because she is secure
He
in
is so
who
secure
she
in who she
is.
is, and always has been. Even
Yes.
when you watch those the interviews from like the 70s, like when Barbara Walters kind of came after her for her cosmetic surgery and things like
Yeah.
that, she's
And her
like,
wigs and
I know who I am. What you think of me is really not my problem. I know who I am.
yeah.
And you'll like me or you won't, but either way, it's okay. And it's like
Yeah.
that's where you want women to get to is like be neutral. If you don't hear the cheers, you won't hear the boos.
Yeah.
Like just be neutral about it. You're just you. You're just living your life and having a
Yeah.
great time. And if you want to be the glorious broads that are wearing all these crazy bright colors and mismatched patterns, and they're mismatched because we say they're mismatched, doesn't mean they're mismatched. It's
Yeah.
like they're goddamn. Or if you want to be the Jamie Lee Curtis who just let her hair go gray, she keeps it really short. She wears very basic clothes, and she's still fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And to the pattern thing, I think they look mismatched, but that's because I don't really like a lot of pattern,
I don't either. But yes,
right?
yeah,
So to me, it looks crazy and like boho chic and sort of like hippy dippy and whatever. But watching them on Instagram and TikTok and listening to them, I adore them.
I adore them.
And I
Absolutely.
applaud them for wearing all of these bright colors and wild patterns together. And it's not just one or two patterns. Like we're talking head to
No,
toe
we're talking
pattern, which
maybe
is a little,
4 or 5. Yeah, like
which,
everything they love is on them.
yeah, which to me is a little hard on the eyes, but you know
Yeah.
what?
But
More
they're
power
happy.
to
Those are,
them,
you look at
right?
these women and they look truly happy and they are
They
so
do.
comfortable in their skin because they've lived their life a lot more years even than we have. And they're like, what you think of me is not my problem. Me walking out the door, liking the way I look, and so I can feel good, that's what matters. And
Yeah. Now,
that's
have
when
any of them had surgery to be as confident as they are? We'll never know because, and that's the thing, I think the other piece to this, cosmetic surgery, yay or nay, aging naturally, yay or nay, it's nobody's fucking business.
nobody's
You know
business.
what I mean?
That's the
It's
thing.
like,
It's not a poll. You're not taking a poll and saying,
yeah.
can I do this? Will I be okay if I know? This is where, it's like as we talk about when you get older, it's like your fuck budget needs to go to zero. You
Yep.
do not care what they think.
Yeah.
It, they can think what, and they can even tell you what they think. You still just don't care.
Yeah.
And that's when you'll know that you've really stepped into your own skin is when you start to stop caring. And it is a practice, it's a process, and you have to work at it. We still have to work at it.
Yeah, I still have to work at it, but I find I'm having to work at it less since I hit 50 than
Yes,
I did in my 40s and 30s. Like
yes,
20s, 30s, it's all about the people pleasing. It's all about what the peers, like your boyfriends, your peers, like just
yes.
Joe
Being
Blow on the
accepted by the
street.
other
Like it's
women in your group and things like
yeah, it's all about that. And I mean, it starts in your teens, obviously, because of course you're
yes,
still learning who you are. You're learning what you're, well, for me, it was, learning who I am, which I never really discovered, and probably why I would have never called myself a people pleaser. But looking back
yeah.
on things, it's like,
Well,
yeah,
that's
you
where
know
being
what? I
nice.
changed for every
Yeah.
boyfriend. I changed depending on the group that I was with. And what's interesting is that is a part of my human design and things that I have had to work on. But as I hit 40, I realized that became a little less. It was still there, but it was less than it was. And now hitting 50, it's like, yeah, your opinion matters, but it doesn't mean I'm going to change because
No,
of that
yes,
opinion, right? Like I'm still
absolutely.
going to do what I want to do. And I don't want to hurt your feelings. So I may take that into consideration, but I'm still probably going to do
Yeah.
what I want to do. And if I'm hurting your feelings, that's probably more about you than me.
Yeah, it's definitely a you problem.
Like,
Yeah.
and it is a process. And I imagine by the time I hit 60, I'm probably going to care even less.
Yeah, I think that's what happens. It definitely hits in your 40s. And I used to have people tell me that after you turn 40, at some place you're just going to stop caring nearly as much what people think. And, you can't even fathom what that is like until
Until you get
you
there.
know it when it happens, though. You
Yeah.
feel the shift. And the same thing when after I hit 50, I mean, like, yeah, that fuck budget goes way down.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine if it just keeps going.
I know.
The
It
negative.
seems like it's like, is there anywhere else to go from here?
Yeah.
Like I can't fathom
No, but it's
it.
such a sense of liberation to me. It's like
Yep.
it's to not be worried about what other people think about you all the time is so freeing. And you don't
And
realize how much baggage you've been carrying around
yeah,
all your life from other
yeah,
people's expectations until you start putting them down and dropping the
yeah.
bags.
Well, and what I'm really curious about, because of course I had a kiddo late, like a lot later than some people. I was watching something the other day about celebrities and how late they've had some of their kids, and I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine. But um, what I'm curious about is obviously my fuck budget is probably a little bit bigger because of him, right? Like
Oh, you have a young
I've got
kid, right?
parents and other kids to navigate, and so there is a certain level of caring
Mhm.
going on. Um, as an empty nester, what's that
Mhm.
going to look like? Because for me, I'm not going to be an empty nester until I'm in my 60s,
That's true.
having him so much later, right? Um, and what that's going to be like,
That's
you know?
absolutely true. Yeah. It does change things. I've got one still at home. He's an adult, but he's still at home. But it definitely frees you a lot when you
Yeah.
don't even have to put on, I don't want to say that appearance, but yeah, you probably still, depending on your personality,
Yeah.
you still have to be reined in just a little bit to not, have your kid crawl under a rock and never want to be seen with you anywhere.
Um, well, no, there are days where I feel like putting on something that's a little crazy, and by crazy I mean like, some of those what I call liquid leggings, right? They're that shiny black plastic kind of material, and I might throw on a pair of runners and a crazy top or whatever. And I think he's got an I don't care kind of attitude about him, right? Like it's just that's mom,
Yeah.
you know. He doesn't really seem to care, but if he would he care about the surgery? I think at most he might just be like, you look different. You
Yeah.
know, like he's not going to care so much as others might care if they
Right.
knew, right? Um, and I think there's a difference too in a nip and a tuck that makes you feel more like yourself, right? Like for me, if it's just removing some of this stuff, that's not necessarily going to inherently change my appearance.
That's right.
Right? It's just going to make me feel a little bit more
Right.
comfortable about sitting in front of somebody and, like when I relax myself having this show and that, I'm always kind of conscious and sort of sitting up so that you can't see it. Whereas those ones that have like those full facelifts that like, get rid of the wrinkles and, they do maybe look like they're trying a little too hard to recapture some of their youth,
Right.
right? There's a fine line for me. And will I catch myself looking at somebody like that and judging them a little? Maybe just a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah. But
But again, if they like what they look like and they
but if they can
feel
own it, yeah, then you're not
themselves,
nearly,
who am I to
it's funny
judge?
how it's like Dolly owns it, Cher owns it. Some of these women that I think they completely owned what they did and they really don't care what you think. And so
No.
it really doesn't, you kind of accept it with them as long as they've completely accepted. And you can tell sometimes people who have the major surgeries done and they're doing it for probably the wrong reasons. If they really
Yes.
got down into it, you can tell. Whereas Dolly's like, girl, if I got money, I'm going to the doctor. I got bills, I got receipts, you want to see them? She was like,
Yeah.
I don't care. She completely
Yeah.
owns everything she is, and that's why you can't face her
No.
because she
No.
owns it. Whereas the only person I wondered was Madonna when she did it. I think
Yeah.
she may have done it for the wrong reasons. I could be wrong. She was already a beautiful woman, obviously, but
Yeah.
it never felt like she was comfortable in what she did. To me, it just didn't come across as even what, not that she talked
No.
about it much because she didn't, but it didn't come across to me like she was just doing it for herself. And I'm
Yeah.
thankful for her. I do.
Yeah, that's a tough one, but well, I have to admit that I will look at somebody like Madonna and I might judge just a little.
Yeah.
But I'm not in her skin. I don't know why she's doing it. I don't know what prompted her to. Whereas Cher, she's done it. And I might, maybe would have, what? I think there was a little bit of judgment with her. And I don't even think it was around her surgeries, it was around what she wore in some of her videos. Once I found out that I think it was one of her kids or one of her band members' kids was playing the guitar and they were like younger and it was like would I want to be staring at my mom's ass in a video like this? Like that's just,
Yeah.
and so, and when I think it was If I Could Turn Back Time video where she was on the
On the warship or whatever the ship.
yes. Yeah, and it was that, the skimpy little black
Yeah.
thing here and the fishnets or whatever. It was that video. And when that came out, I think I was probably in my late teens, early 20s. And so that's where it was really like, I'm trying to figure me out. And
Right.
so projecting like, oh my God, I can't imagine wearing that. And then knowing that there's this young kid behind, I'm like, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, that's a little weird. And so, yeah, it wasn't probably until years later that I realized, you know what? Go girl. You do
Yeah,
you,
it's like
you
what,
know?
yeah, as long as, is it a bad thing that somebody younger sees you dressed like that?
No, probably
No,
not. Really. I mean,
again, it's like you go to the beach and you see women wearing a lot less than that.
this is
You know,
true.
their thong bikinis and their strings, and it's like, and but we make such a big deal over clothes and how revealing or
Yeah.
not revealing they are, kind of thing. And it's like,
Well, and I think personally, the reason that when I was younger, and possibly even now, because I still catch myself every once in a while, judge someone and find myself questioning what they're wearing, is because it's not something I would wear.
yeah, exactly.
Right. So, like when I was younger, we're on the beach and body is still doing its thing when you're teens and you're so a little uncomfortable or whatever. Um, I would only ever wear one pieces because I didn't like,
Right.
I didn't want to show off. I didn't want to do this. Right. But then I would see a girl who was bigger and she might be in a bikini. And it was like, nobody wants to see that. Why is she in a bikini? Oh my God. Right. But she was strutting around, having a great time. But I wasn't in a place to understand at that point. It's only now in hindsight.
Right.
I was probably pointing a finger at her and judging because I know I didn't feel comfortable in a bikini.
Right. And that brings us back to being older and being in a bikini. People have very strong opinions. Like, if anybody's out there, are you okay seeing a 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old woman in a bikini? Gravity is doing what gravity does, and things are kind of
Gravity is not
stopping a
kind.
little bit. Can you look at that and just think, yay, her, go girl, whatever, if you look like you feel great, go have yourself the time of your life.
Yeah,
Because a lot of people
totally.
think if you get our age, you shouldn't wear shorts. You shouldn't obviously wear a bikini. That's a big no-no. And it's like you have to cover up more. You're supposed to cover up
Yes.
as much as possible so no one has to see your aging body. And that's a huge problem because again, men don't get that. It's just
No.
picking apart women. And again, women are picking apart other women. We expect it from the men,
Yeah.
but we shouldn't expect it from each other.
No, it's not, especially when people talk about like sisterhood and community and women coming together. And, while I think that's a great thing, women coming together, we should. I think we can do big, big things when we come together and set aside all that stuff. But we have to move past this first. Like, we can't be the ones picking on each other
Yes.
and tearing each other apart if we want to do these great things.
Right.
Like, heaven forbid I go gray. I'm looking forward to it, but
Yeah.
society isn't looking forward to it, right? But what do men get? Well, they have nice salt and pepper hair.
Yeah, they get to be a silver fox, whereas women are just old.
Yeah,
She's let herself go because you're not
yeah,
all kinds of hair dye on your hair. And it's
yeah.
like it's just a preference, and it's just so important that we start coming together. It's like we have to start being our own enemy, and that's why the patriarchy has been able to do what it does because we're too busy doing their job for them. Like they're
Yeah, we're
to tear women
infighting.
down and keep them small, and we're helping them.
Yeah,
And we have to stop. And it's going to take practice because this is
yes,
just as ingrained and conditioned in us as it is them.
yeah,
Women have
yeah.
been taught and conditioned to tear apart other women because apparently you can't have too many strong, confident women in one room. That's a bad thing.
That's why we're doing what we're
That's why
doing. You and I,
we
we're
want women
starting the
to become
movement here of
whole.
women
That's the
coming together.
holy woman is you are whole and complete. Just
Yes.
like you are, you're whole and complete if you want to be a little bit different. The choice is yours. We're just here to help you find your voice and then style yourself that because every woman has a style. There's probably 1,000 women out there who don't think they have a style, because they just don't know who they are. But
Yep.
once you know who your identity and your personality is, and you get to choose that,
Yes.
and then you come in, and it's like, we can totally dress this woman where you will feel like every day is a great day when you're getting
Yep.
dressed. You don't walk in your closet and look, I have nothing to wear, and I have 10, like 100 pieces of clothing in here, and
Yep.
nothing looks like me anymore.
And it's because society is saying that that's not you, but you know what? It probably is. And you just aren't like, you just don't necessarily have the confidence, right? I've got stuff in my closet that I keep around because I hope eventually I might lose a
You
little
get
bit of
back
weight
into
so that I can. But the reality is, I'm probably not going to. So, my goal over the next few months is like, you know what? I wore that when I was 30 pounds lighter. The reality is, I may never be 30 pounds lighter. So, let's just
it.
because I don't want to feel bad about myself when I walk into my
Yeah.
closet. I want to feel good, right? So I want it to be full of things that I know I can wear, that I know I love, and not, I loved that. I wish I could wear it again, and then feel down that menopause is making things spread where I don't want them to spread.
Absolutely.
But I would love for anyone to come in and give us their thoughts on this. Um, Ask questions. We love a debate. We love a good debate.
We love it.
Um, but if you want, but if you want to go even deeper into this, we do have a membership. It's the cost of like a lunch out, not even $10 a
Not
month.
even.
Come join us. We're going to do lots of fun things in there. We'll have some challenges. We have coaching. We have Q&A. We have all sorts of fun things. But yeah, I would love to hear if you've had surgery done, how it made you feel. Why did you do it? And, would you do it again or like
Yeah.
other things? If you don't like surgery, why not? I would love to hear why, like the
Yeah,
whole,
like your why. Why do you want to age
yeah,
gracefully? Or why do you want to have a little bit of assistance? Just
yeah,
your why. What's your worldview on aging? And not only yours, it's like, and are you impacted by others' viewpoints in your life on aging? It's
yeah,
like, are your decisions being made by someone else's idea of what aging should be?
yeah. And if you're not sure, come in and let's have a discussion
Let's
about
have a
it,
talk about it.
like
Absolutely.
pros and cons, right? I mean, like I say, I'm all for it if you're doing it for the right reasons, as Dawn has said too,
Yeah.
right? Like if it's something deep down in your gut that it's something that you want to do to feel better about yourself, to feel more aligned with yourself, with who you are or know to be, go nuts, have
Yeah,
fun.
or if you want to age gracefully and you're not allowing yourself to do that, you're still
Yes.
dyeing your hair or wearing something that you don't feel like you can, even though you're really tired of all the maintenance. Some people will keep doing it to keep up the
Yes.
image of the person everybody thinks they are. And do you need help stepping out of that?
And you need to go over to the Just Being Melanie TikTok and start listening to the We Do Not Care
We do
Club if that's where
not
you're sitting, because I
care.
tell you,
Absolutely. We are going to be like, yeah, we are like OGs. And this is like the minute this woman posted that, everybody was like, yes.
yes. Yeah, it was such a breath of fresh air, I tell you.
No, it has been amazing. It's also been amazing how many celebrities have been on there.
Oh, I've only noticed
Ashley
one. Who
Judd,
else?
Ashley Judd
Yes, I saw
made a
Ashley
video
Judd
of
do
that.
it. Yeah, I saw her. I definitely liked I thought that was hilarious when I
Oh,
saw
it
her do
was.
it.
It absolutely was. But no, we want to hear your thoughts. Where it's like, this is for women everywhere. It's like, and we know our experiences aren't other people's experiences. Our experiences as white women are not women of color's experiences from different
Yeah.
cultures and religions and countries. It is different, and everybody has their own definition and idea of what aging should or should not be. And also,
Yeah.
because we're from North America, we get that we're some of the worst guilty parties of critiquing people in aging. Like,
We
we
are. Yep.
frown upon people aging, whereas there are some European countries that seem to smile upon it.
Yes.
And so I would love to hear from some of those women. That would be a wonderful,
Yeah.
injection of positivity if there were some women from like Europe
Well, and you know what?
that
Let's
able
put it
to.
out there. I am fairly certain that at some point as we grow, men are going to come across this channel.
Yes.
Whether or not they stop and listen is another thing, but they're going to come across it, right? So, I would like to put out a little bit of a challenge.
Mm.
If some men are going to stop and listen to this, I know that we are trying to get away from the patriarchy and doing what we want to do. But if there is a man who is willing to intelligently and calmly have a discussion, I would actually like to know their thoughts on it because, I mean, I'm sure that there are some men out there that want to get a little bit of a nip and a tuck, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would love to know why they do it, or would they consider
Absolutely.
doing it, or how they, you know, view women who do it or don't,
Excellent
right? Like,
question.
honestly, let's
Yeah,
get the
we're
other
open to,
side of the
like I said,
coin
we're open
here.
for conversation. We're open for debate as long
Yep.
as you're being polite and
Polite,
respectful.
respectful.
That's all we're asking for. Because like we don't want to get down in the mud, but we will if somebody
Oh yeah.
come in and
We'll delete your block. Yeah, we
do.
got no problem with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, you know, I mean, I'm doing it for me, but I know that men out there are going to have an opinion and there's nothing we can do
Yes.
about that. I'm kind of curious about what their take on it is. You know, I mean, they're the ones that are, well, not they, but like collectively, kind of the ones that are pushing it, really.
Right.
You know, why?
Why? That's again because back we want to know what your why is, why you believe what you do about aging,
Yeah.
whether gracefully or with help. Just the general it helps you really get to understand a person's worldview when they can tell you why they believe. Because sometimes we hold beliefs and we don't know why we believe.
Yeah.
Start digging, you find out it wasn't your belief at all. You did
No, it
it
was a friend's, it
intentionally
was
conditioned.
family, it was something else. Yeah. And when we can break that down, then it's like, well, okay, do I really believe
Do you
that?
still want to continue with that belief, or would you
Yeah.
create a new one because you get to create your beliefs? You do. People is a belief is just a thought you keep thinking or have been told over and over and over again, usually for decades, but
Yeah.
you can change that belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're happy, great. But if you're not, we can help you with that.
Yes.
We
So let's have
absolutely,
that discussion.
yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I
we're
think
about at our
I'm
40
good
minute
on the
mark.
topic. How are you? You got anything else?
Nope, I think we're about good for this one. But like you said, like, share, subscribe, all the things. There's going to be a link in the description for our Becoming Holy membership. $10 a month, no contract. You really cannot beat this with a stick at
Nope.
all. This is like the best deal on the internet, I think, right now.
No brainer.
What
No
we're
brainer.
growing this into is going to be a complete experience. It's like you're going to have everything you need, whether you just want to hear the free YouTubes and catch us during the week and listen to what we're talking about and get in the YouTube community in the comments, that's okay too. Or if you want to go all the way to the VIP day, where the day is all about you and we will completely find your voice, help you decide what choices you want to make, and then help you embody that woman. We're creating an experience. It's the Holy Woman experience because we want you to live your life in a way that makes you happy. And that's what we're going for. And just stay tuned because we have got so much going on. It's actually hard for us to even corral what we have
Yeah.
going on.
Busy, 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 busy. We
Yeah.
are.
All
We
right.
are.
Okay.
Until next week.
Until next week, we will see you
Alrighty.
next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.